All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here today with another podcast. Today's guest, I am so excited about. You guys will be just as excited once you get to hear her and what she has to say. So Muriel Williams is going to be on today, but I wanted to remind you, we have a housing summit, a Black Wealth Housing Summit coming up on June 19th. It's going to be the actual Juneteenth day. It's going to be from 5:30 to 7:30. It's going to be at Cross Purpose. And the reason you need to be there because we need to find out who mortgage are you paying. And if you're not paying your own mortgage, we need to help you there. The goal is to put a plan together. And I've kind of said this on each of these podcasts. So the plan together is that we put you with a real estate agent. We're going to put you with a loan officer. We're going to put you with a credit person. We're going to put you with an insurance agent. We're going to put you with a financial planner. We're going to put together a team of people that's going to help you. Because some of you will be ready to get going. You're chomping at the bit. You're ready. You may not know that you're ready, but you have the ability to go start home ownership right away. For some of you, it might take 6 months. For some of you, it might take a year. For some of you, it might even take 2 years. But you will walk out of there with a basic plan of what you need to do. Then we're going to build this team around you. So if you already have a real estate agent, when you go to the RSVP site, and that's at the blackwealthexperience.org, the blackwealthexperience.org is where you're going to go. You will go there. You go to RSVP. It asks you if you already have a realtor, a real estate agent. And then when you do that, we'll automatically make sure that that person is included and then help build that team around you. Because the goal is we realize that the first step to personal wealth and the first step to generational wealth is through home ownership. And that is the number one way that you're going to get it. I say this all the time. If let's say you're in an apartment and you're paying $2,000 a month, and some of you paying more, some of you paying maybe a little bit less, but most of you are in that range. You pay $2,000 a month. After 12 months, you spent $24,000. If you stay in that rental place for 10 years, you spent $240,000 on that rental place, and you paid somebody else. So you pretty much paid that off. If it is an apartment unit, that unit 10 years ago probably cost a little less than $200,000. So you've now paid for that unit for the rest of its life that it's there. If it's a home, then it was a $500,000 home. Then now you've paid half of their entire mortgage for their house of what they paid for the house when you're there. And you did that for them because it wasn't for you or your family or your generation. So June 19th, I need you there. No matter what, you figure out how to get there. We're going to serve you dinner. It's at the Cross Purpose, which is in the same parking lot as the shorter AME on the corner of Martin Luther King and Colorado. But just make sure you're there. If you know somebody who is living and paying rent, then you bring them with you. And we get them everybody because our goal in our community is to get as many people with ownership as possible. So we in this podcast, you'll have a flyer for it. There's no reason for you not to be there. It's a holiday. It's a great day to come out. It's in the evening. So if you do have to work, you should be able to come. We want to make sure that you have it. So with that said, today we have the president of NAREB, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about what NAREB is and why it's such an important organization. But Muriel has been a realtor for a while now. She works with her own company or her family's company that works there. She knows the community very well. And we're going to just kind of go through some of the reasons that we're there. So Muriel, if you could just tell people how to get a hold of you. We'll do it here. We'll do it also at the end. And then just kind of give us your story about, why you're doing what you're doing and why this is such an important adventure.
Thank you, Brian. I'm so excited to be on the podcast today. So thank you so much. I do want to say thank you once again for having me on here. I'm Muriel Williams Thompson. I am the president of the Denver chapter of National Association of Real Estate Brokers, Denver NAREB, also known as Denver Board of Realtors. And as you said before, I am a broker at Town and Country Realty, which is our family brokerage. We are the oldest Black-owned real estate firm in Colorado. So very awesome. Proud of that as well. But also, I'm the president of the Denver chapter of the organization. There's a little over 100 now chapters of NAREB. So NAREB is a national organization, National Association of Real Estate Brokers. We are the historically Black real estate professional organization that exists, and we've been around since 1947. So long time.
Yes, that's awesome. 1947, yeah, 50. Oh yeah, I'm not even count the years, right? 70 years.
a lot older than you and I.
Yeah. Exactly. So tell us what does NAREB do? What I mean, you say that they're the oldest professional brokers in town. What is it that they stand for? What are some of the things that they promote, or why would somebody want to be part of it, or why would somebody want to access services from a member of the Denver NAREB?
Thank you. So Denver NAREB, our focus is very much in line with our national mission, and that is we promote democracy in housing, number one. So that no housing discrimination, no matter race, creed, religion, sexual orientation, you name it. We do not discriminate, and we do not promote discrimination at all. That's how our organization was built upon. Even fighting for things as the Fair Housing Act of 1968. So, but our mission now, actually, I would say one of the biggest initiatives is to increase Black homeownership across the nation. So we are the lowest ethnicity with homeownership, and that's in the Black community across the nation, and that's at a little over 45% right now, as of 2023 first quarter numbers. So, in comparison, and I'll say that's very much in line with the wealth gap. So we have white homeownership, which is a little over 75%. At Black homeownership is at 45%. So that's 30% deficit, very much in line with the wealth gap. So that is, the number one biggest purchase, the largest purchase that someone makes in their lifetime usually is the roof over their head or some type of real estate investment. And that is a key to wealth. You build wealth by purchasing real estate. So
how do they, I'm just interrupting you for a second. How do they come up with this number? I mean, is it just they look at every Black person that's in Colorado and say 45% of you own homes, or how do they, I know that number seems a little high, probably to what I see in reality, but what do they come with? How do they come up with that number?
I can say you are right on the money when you said that number seems a little bit high, because here in Colorado, it's not that. We are lower than the national average.
Okay.
So that number does come from what we actually put out every year, and that's the State of Housing in Black America. So the Sheba report, which is on the NAREB.com website, but we also have it a link that actually goes to the Denver NAREB.org, our website as well. So you can actually go to either one of those websites and pull that report. That actually directly links to Census Bureau information as well. Now I can say here in Colorado, if you actually take a look at that report and other reports that exist, we're at a little bit under 38% in Colorado. So of all of our Black population here in Colorado, a little bit under 38% of them are actually homeowners. So we have a lot of work to do. We are below that pitiful the number in our nation. So we actually need to raise the national number above that 45% and very much close to the 75% of white homeownership. But we also need to take a look at heavily in Colorado, where do we need to increase? Now I can say we have made some strides, because in 2018, we had ran the numbers and we were around 29% Black homeownership rate. So we have made some strides since then, but it's not enough.
Not even, not even close when you think of what the generational wealth and the personal wealth happens with that home ownership. And you're thinking that on less than 50% of our population, way less than 50% of our population. And so they're not counting kids that are 18 and under, and they're counting just adults that are over 21, over 18. Do you know what that number is, or how that's?
As far as home ownership? Oh, that's the number. It doesn't matter what age you are. That is the Black home ownership rate.
Yeah. So like if you're 14 years old, are you considered, and your parents own a home, are you considered a homeowner? Or
no, it's the household.
It's the household. Okay, so one household. Okay.
One household. Yeah.
Okay.
So if any of the owners on record or on title are Black, then we count it. So it can, if it had 2 homeowners or had 3 homeowners on there, if one of them is Black, that counts as a Black owned.
Gotcha. And then the households that are not are just considered, like the apartment complex has one person who's a person of color or Black person that's there. They count them as a non-homeowner.
Absolutely.
Okay. Gotcha. I wasn't sure how that was calculated, and somebody in the last podcast actually asked the question. So I said I would find out from the expert. So I did. So you're here. All right. So you've been doing this a while now, so you've had housing summits, you've had seminars, you've had anything you can possibly do
Yes.
to get, to raise this number. Why is it so important? What's so important about why? What does it matter?
Well, I can tell you, number one, we focus heavily on education, and that's within the community. And but it's all communities. We actually
Mhm.
educate in all Black and Brown communities, and even just anyone who wants housing information, we give it to them. But I can say it's important to focus on the Black homeownership rate and in the Black community, because they don't get that information very readily
Mhm.
across the years. I mean, if you think about it, how many Black homeownership summits have you attended or even seen advertised
Mhm.
historically?
Yeah.
If we don't care as Black real estate professionals, if our communities are getting the information, who's going to care?
Mhm.
That's how I look at it, and that's how all of us and our colleagues look at things. If we're not the ones educating our communities,
Mhm.
we can't be
Then
mad
who?
at if
Yeah.
nobody is doing it.
Yeah. Well, and you think of, you think of, like, you talked about education and how important education is, and if it's an education issue, and we're not doing a good job of educating folks, how do we do that? Is it just, how does somebody know? Like, I was talking to, just another family this weekend, and they were like, nobody ever, I thought we had to have 20% down, and so we don't have 20% down, so we were figured we'd never own a house. How do we bridge that gap of education where people think that it's possible, and or don't believe it's possible when it truly is?
Well, I know the first thing you did was cringe, because that's one of the biggest myths out there right now, is that
Hmm.
you need 20% down on a property to get in the door, and you do not. And a
No.
lot of people just don't know that. They hear that number so much, and it's advertised so much on pretty much anything that you can find when it comes to homeownership, that they
Hmm.
just really believe that's the only way. That's where it starts. And we have to dispel the myths. And if you are talking about, let's talk about generational wealth. I know you said
Okay.
that earlier. Well, how do you build generational wealth if you have parents or grandparents or generations before them that were never homeowners? They're not passing down anything to you. So hence, when you do need that 20%, or even if you want to put it down, there are benefits to putting 20% down.
Yeah.
But if you want to do
Absolutely.
that, um, you can't go to mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, because they may not have it, because they didn't build up the equity. They didn't build up the generational wealth to be able to pass on to you. So that's number one. That is
Hmm.
the key to bridging the wealth gap, and to building on homeownership for future generations. So I could say education, number one, is key, because if
Hmm.
you have family members that have never purchased before, they can't tell you anything about that experience. They can't tell you how to go about it, how to get started, how to align yourself, how to position yourself to actually do something that they've never done. So you've got to get the information from somewhere. So
Yeah, and yet those are the ones that seem to be giving the most advice, right? On, "Well, you can't do that, baby. You're not ready to have a house. You need to stay right where you're at." It seems like that's, I hear that so often, is, you know I can't buy a house. Well, why can't you buy a house? Because mama or auntie or uncle said that I can't buy a house. Well, how do they own houses? No. Well, how do they know? That,
that
exactly, that pause that goes in there, you just go, I can't believe that we're educating each other based on, information that is so outdated. Like, how many people have you talked to? When's the last real estate agent that you called and said, I'd like to buy a house, can you help me?
Mhm.
And those simple words turn on, the faucet of possibilities, right?
Absolutely.
Because then we can go out and find out. I mean, I did a couple of people asked me, this weekend again, how do I get an approval for a loan? And I'm like, well, we have to start out with an application. Well, are you going to run my credit? That seems to be the big one. Yes, I'm going to run your credit, but I'm going to do a soft pull at first. I'm going to do something that's not going to affect it. And you hear this, like, I can't have my credit affected. Yeah, really. So what is it that you're trying to buy that you're worried about you can't have your credit affected if it's not a home? What is it that you're doing? And like I said, I go into these apartment complexes and I see Range Rovers and Mercedes and BMW and land. I see all of these expensive $80,000 to $100,000 cars, that
Yes.
there's pushing off the snow off in the winter because there's no garages or carports, and you go, okay, so you can't live in that most likely. And if you can afford that, you probably could afford a home. And I'm not saying you don't get those. And I'm not saying those aren't good things to have and you
But
should
you get the
have them.
home first.
We get the home first. Get the home first. And so there's so many reasons that it is. So if you're walking through, like somebody comes to you and approaches you and says, "I'd like to purchase a home," what kind of the conversations that you have with them? What do you like? How do you go through those steps, especially if it's a person that's black or a person of color that may not have had any experience? Nobody in their family's ever owned a home. What is that like?
That's actually something I do every single week. So I do
Okay.
talk to someone new that has never done the process. The first thing is, I talk to them, okay, do you know what your credit looks like? Have you subscribed to any site or anything? Not for the score, because those are not necessarily accurate. There's all different kind of algorithms that different systems use to tell you your score. I say, have you at least subscribed to one of those sites so that doesn't when you can actually pull yourself, so you can see what is reflecting on your credit report. Just the sheer information of, do you have some collections? Do you have any late pays on anything? Are there duplicates? What type of things are actually, what do you see? And so that's the first question. And I know that there's a few of them that have some great commercials out there, and people say, yes, I do. I have subscribed to something and I know that I have XYZ things going on my credit. Okay, let's start there. And then usually I just have them pull up that report and let's take a look at what's reporting. A lot of times we'll see some inaccurate information. Number one, we might see a credit card that's showing twice on there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe previously they might have had a late. We're looking for things that make sure that they haven't had any lates in the last 12 months, those type of things. But from there, that's where we now say, okay, either you need to get passed on to one of the credit specialists that we work with out in the community, and we have some great partners out there that actually do that. Or they might be ready and say, okay, you know what, this is time for you to talk to a loan officer. Your information is aligned properly. Talk to them now. Let's see what credit score that they pull. We see what the little lovely commercial site does. So now it looks like you are ready to go. So let's talk to a lender and let's get you pre-approved, and that person will guide you. But I can say there's a whole education, even free classes that they can take, first time buyer classes. They might take just 4 hours out of their day and they get educated, from different processes. So I always recommend that. I always recommend them take a class too, in addition to anything that I say or their lender actually says to them. So I know that's a long way to answer to the
No, that's perfect
to a short question.
the trust factor that goes in there. And who do I trust? And I can't trust anybody, about my finances. There's this belief that if somebody knows my finances, then I'm not sure what the fear is, that if you were to tell somebody in the community that is working on, that does this all the time, if I tell them my finances, I don't know if it's an embarrassment, like I should be further along, or it's they're going to do something to me to take my stuff, the only thing that I have left. I'm not sure what that is, but it's prevalent in our community. What do you think that
comes
is?
up. Yeah, that actually comes up quite a bit. Number one, they have to feel safe with you. I mean, at the end of the day, that is one of the number one things that I address. There's number one, you're in a no judgment zone. When I'm talking to someone about their home ownership goals and what they want to do, there's no judgment that comes from me. I have seen it all. I've done it all. I mean, I've been in their shoes too. And, it doesn't matter what age you are. I don't care if you're like 20 years old starting this process, or if you're 80 years old starting this process. It doesn't matter. This is a no judgment zone, number one. But then also I like to let people know that they do feel safe. And, we all have licenses. We are regulated by departments, and they can take our licenses if we misrepresent or if we do something harmful to anyone who's actually going through this process out there. And so I let them know that there are repercussions. If I was to do something to hurt you, there are repercussions. So I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to jeopardize my livelihood that I need, and for anybody, to do something like that. So really, at the end of the day, it's just building that trust. And especially if it's someone who looks like me. I mean, if you're talking to somebody who's black or brown, there is a more trusting, I'm going to care about you because I've been in your shoes. I know how difficult it is. I know what our community goes through when they're trying to get information. It's not easy. And it's not
you
real.
think of like all the things like redlining and that have been appraisals even recently, where appraisers aren't appraising families of color the same as they're appraising our white counterpart families, and there's things to be afraid of because it still exists in our communities. I even had a situation. We were trying to buy a house out in Elizabeth at one point, and once the owner found out that our family was not white, the whole thing fell apart. I mean, to the point it was ugly. And the stuff keeps happening. I mean, it happens. And so it's important to find somebody you can trust. But at the same time, you have to also go, you have to tell me everything. Because if you don't tell me everything, it could jeopardize, this whole process. And so what does that happen to you where people, wait to, I didn't think that would show up, or I didn't realize, right?
Yes, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to scream it from the mountaintop. People, trust your lenders, trust your real estate professionals, trust your realtors, trust your, and I say realtors is a trade name for those who are members of NAREB. So,
okay.
But for out there in the world. But yes, if you're in a situation where, maybe you file your taxes and maybe you owe the IRS and maybe you set up a payment plan, that's going to come up for you. Tell your lender. If you just started a new credit line and it hasn't showed up on your credit yet, but you just did it about a week before you talk to your lender, it's going to show up before you get to the closing table. Tell them so you're not halted. These are things that, and if you do have a judgment or something that's against you, maybe it's not showing up on your credit, but when they run information for title work, it's going to show up. Talk about it. It doesn't mean that we cannot finish this process. It just means we have to deal with it and we have to calculate for it at the same time. So you might as well talk about it. This is a no judgment zone. We can't help you. We cannot help you if we do not know your full scenario. So yes, things like that happen.
Well, and then sometimes, folks will tell me stuff that is going on, that it doesn't matter. But I can let me at least know that I can be, part of that process of finding, because more often than not, it does matter. And it doesn't matter, from the lending side, it matters what lender I go to. So I have A, B, and C that's available, and you tell me all the information that A is perfect for, and then you end up, A finds out. Now I'm stuck with trying to go to B and C later on, which is now, put maybe the whole transaction in jeopardy because we can't get it done in the timeline that you asked me to do. Had you told me about the issues over here with A, I know A is not the right lender, let's go straight to C. And it could be the same type of thing. They just require different things. Like sometimes like right now in the down payment assistant world, and this is where we're saying you don't need the 20% down we're giving out. I have one lender who will say we're giving it to you as a grant, and the other lender is saying we're giving it to you as you don't have to pay it back until you sell or refinance, and another one that says you don't have to pay it back after so many years. They're all three great programs, but depending on your situation and where you're at, it can make a big difference. In everybody says, well, I want the grant. Well, the grant one may cost a little bit more in interest, and then you don't qualify. So those are some things. And then what really messes up is we do that, and then I have the numbers and I got an A and I got you qualified for a certain amount. So then I go tell your real estate broker, and your real estate broker goes and shows you houses based on what I said on A. And then all of a sudden now A is not available anymore in C. Now you went and looked at a whole bunch of houses, and then you got that emotional tie to maybe one or two of them that are now not possible for you yet. And I'm not going to say it's not going to be possible for you ever. I'm just saying right now we need to get you in a home.
Yes.
That conversation of, well, we're going to wait till the interest rates go down. Stop that conversation. Get into a home, because how much are you paying interest if you living in an apartment or a rental?
100%.
100%.
You're paying 100% interest if you are renting. So
you're paying 100%. So even if it was at 12%, which it's not, and I know you and I both, when we bought our first houses, I think mine was 11.5 when I first bought my first house, interest rate. And I was able to do it. There were
Yeah.
programs that were available. I was able to get into a home, and life is different. And I'll
Yes.
just say this over and over again. Life is different as a homeowner.
Yes.
And you watch the Median Homes is another podcast we just did. You get a chance to watch that podcast. You will see how she's a grandma now, just moved into her first house a couple of weeks ago. Life is different. It is
Yes.
different, and the belief through all these years that she couldn't do it, and why she believed she couldn't do it, and growing up in a family that didn't have and had no clue, and not having the education and believing. I've had several people that grew up in the projects here in Denver. Not we're not talking about L.A. or Chicago or New York. We're talking about right here in Denver that are now realizing, wow, I could have bought a house, but I'm doing it now. And so, what else would you say to a person who's watching this, who's thinking, should I come to the summit? Should I not come to the summit on June 19th because I don't know, I don't really believe I can get it, or I got to watch something on TV, I got to watch an episode of the America's Got Talent or something. What would you say about the importance for somebody who doesn't have a home right now?
This is the number one thing that you need to be doing on June 19th.
I'm telling you, absolutely it
If
is.
you are not a homeowner and you have now thought about it, even if you haven't thought about it, this is how you start thinking about it. You actually have to get the information. The information has to come from somewhere, and it can't come from someone in your family who's never done it. It
Mhm.
can't come from there. You can't have someone, and I hate to say this, but you can't have someone who's living in another family member's home, or maybe have never gone through the process, telling you you can't do it because they didn't do it. That
Mhm.
is the most ridiculous thing. This is what you need to do. You need this for your future. If nothing else, it's a few hours of your time to find out if this process is right for you, and where do you start? How do
Mhm.
you get started? These are professionals that are there volunteering their time to give you the information. Why would you not come? It's free. Yes, get there.
And here's what I would say, because some of you, I tell you to bring somebody with you, right? Because you have friends. Usually, our associations are around folks that are just like us, within, make just about what we make, live just about where we live. That's where our associations are. That's just how we are as human beings. So I'm asking you now to bring somebody with you, right? I am not going to ask you all your personal information at the seminar or the workshop or at the, at our
We
summit.
don't put you on blast in front of
Yeah, we're
people.
not going to put you on blast.
No.
That information is your information. What I am going to do is give you some software. I'm going to give you an app that will track it and help you. But the people that you're bringing, you want to help as well. That's another thing. There's that story of the crabs in the basket.
Yes.
When they're catching crabs, it is my understanding that whenever you're going to catch crabs, you want to catch at least two, because if you put one in a basket, it'll just crawl on out. But if you put two in the same basket, one will always try to bring the other one back down, and you don't even have to put a lid on the basket, because they will never let each other get ahead. And
Mm,
so I'm telling you now, don't be a crab basket, or don't be a crab.
right.
Bring somebody so both of you can be elevated. Because wouldn't it be great to share a neighborhood with your closest friends? Instead of sharing a wall that's
Yeah.
in an apartment complex. Now you got a yard, you got barbecues, you have all the wonderful things that go along with home ownership, whether it's a townhome, whether it's a condo, whether it's a single family residence. We're going to put a plan together so you can get started. Are you going to, and I say this a lot too, are you going to live probably out in, Southeast Aurora over by the lake and the reservoir, or, way out in Littleton or England? Maybe, but
You
maybe
can
you
live wherever you
won't.
want to.
Yeah, you live where you want to, but we got to start somewhere, right? You have to get, at least started on this journey. And then after that, we're going to talk about investments and everything else.
Yes.
How can I want you to tell how to get a hold of you again, because I want to make sure that if there's anything that you want to add to this process or to this thought process, because I so enjoy having you here.
I so enjoy being here. Thank you so much,
Good.
Brian. So glad you put this on. So my name, once again, Muriel Williams Thompson. I'm with Town and Country Realty, also the president of Denver chapter, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, Denver Board of Realtors. And you can reach me. Actually, I'm going to give you the office number is 303-798-9494. Once again, that's 303-789-9494. I'm going to also put my cell phone number out there because you know what? It's public. It is out there. You can also reach me directly on my cell phone, which is 720-635-2135. And then if you want to email me, Muriel D. Williams, Muriel D. Williams @yahoo.com is probably the easiest one that doesn't sift everyone out. So I would say reach me there. But I did want to say, if you're looking at this process and you're like, oh, this is one thing I want to leave people with. Oh, I'm going to wait, like you said, for interest rates to go back down or go down or something like that, because where they are right now, I could say, anywhere between 5 to 8% right now, depending on where you go to for your loan. That's normal, people. That's a normal interest rate.
It is.
Don't believe the hype. That is a normal interest rate. We are in a normal world. If you're talking about the 2 and 3% interest rates, we're gonna go. That was a clearance sale. That was the clearance sale you missed. It's okay. You can buy down your rate though. If you wanted to be able to put extra money down, you can do certain things if you were to get seller concessions. But those are things that your real estate professionals can guide you through. So I would just say get in the process. These are normal interest rates. And I can tell you anywhere, whether you're talking about 5 to 8, whatever program, whatever you're going to do, is a whole lot cheaper than 100% with renting. And I'm not going to say that like it's a bad thing to rent. Renting is a good tool when you need to use it. Maybe you might be looking to move around for your job and things like that. Maybe you move too often, or maybe you just got to Denver or to Colorado. Maybe you're about to go somewhere else for your whatever it is. Maybe you're building up your credit. Maybe you're trying to do some other things and save and do things your way. Renting is a good tool, but it doesn't have to be your forever tool.
And it shouldn't be your
ownership. Homeownership is how you build your generational wealth. You want to make that your goal as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And we're not even saying, like, let's say you want to live across from Coors Field and there is no possibility to own something across from Coors Field. Yeah. I have to rent. Still go get you a place. You can keep renting under by Coors Field and use your other place as a rental. We can figure out how to make that work. But then you're building wealth. And that's the key to this, is that you're building well. So June 19th, cross purpose, 5:30, 7:30. We're buying you dinner. There's going to be some great programming going on. We're giving you tools. You're going to walk away with a plan, or not an entire full blown out plan because we only have 2 hours. But we're going to know exactly what you need to do to develop that plan, because we want to get you into a home. Whose mortgage are you paying? And we had Muriel on today. And if there's anything that you got out of it, it's possible. She's part of a family that is the oldest Black brokerage in Colorado ever, right? So they've been around, they know what they're doing. She knows how to make sure that this happens for you on a weekly basis. She's talking to somebody just like you. So make sure you give her a call, you give any of our other guests a call. The key is action taken, because unrealized action is just potential. And potential is great to have, but it's not something that you can go to the bank with, right? You're not going to the bank with potential. You're going with potential that is realized into action. So Muriel, thank you again so much for being on today. I can't wait to put it out. It's going to come, it'll be out for you guys to watch very quickly. Please watch these all through. Make sure you're at the Blackwell Summit. Do you have any parting thoughts at the end here?
My parting thoughts are, I want to see you at the Black Wealth Summit.
All right, I love it.
Juneteenth, people.
Juneteenth.
Be there, be square.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.